Welcome. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll just be another 2 or 3 minutes before we get started at the top of the hour. Welcome, and as we're all getting settled, we'll be another minute before we start.
Hello to everybody.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the GAIA Journey. My name is Antoinette, and I am standing on Lenape land in Cortland Manor, what's known as Cortland Manor, New York, next to the Hudson River and north of New York City, just to orient. It's wonderful to be together on this day. It's a very special Gaia day. And it's just really beautiful to see all the different places that we're coming from. I'm watching everyone say hello in the chat, and we are really a global community from Japan, Argentina, Massachusetts, Norway, Mexico, Vancouver, BC, Germany. We're really coming in from all over. So I invite you to really just to kind of bask in the global community that we are. And today is a day of celebration. So in the Gaia Journey, we often spend our time really connecting into the global field, really sensing into what is happening in our communities and our places and spaces, and really to just land ourselves in this connection with each other and really seeing and understanding what's happening and what our place is in the world and how we can really work towards the kind of systems change and society that we want to live in. So that's a little bit about Gaia in general. And the if you've never been with us before for the Gaia Journey, Gaia stands for Global Activation of Intention and Action. So in addition to honoring our Mother Earth, we also honor the intentions and action that each of us are taking around the world. So a warm welcome. If you've been with us many times before, if this is your first time, it's a great day to be here together. We are celebrating the launch of Arawana Hayashi's book, The Art of Making a True Move, which is an exploration of social presencing theater, which is not only needed in this moment now, it's also a body of work that has been developing over the last 15 years or so. So we'll get to explore a practice in this first session. It's 9 a.m. Right now, Eastern time. And so if you're here, you're joining us hopefully for this next hour and a half. And then at 12 Eastern at noon, we will do the second session. So this first session is really diving into a practice. And the second session is really hearing some of the stories from around the world that have been using social presencing theater and diving into how we might move social presencing theater forward as a um, form of really making visible the systems change that we need. And just to speak to my own little experience, for the last 10 years, I have been working with Eileen Fisher and her foundation. And part of my entry into the Presencing Institute as a partner was working with Arawana and Otto and having this experience of social presencing theater in the company. So Eileen Fisher is a clothing company, and really getting to be able to see our own organization and understand what was happening in the present moment, but also get a glimpse of what might be happening over the next few months and years. And I have to say that years later, I still hold some of these what we call 4D maps. I still hold some of those images in my mind about what is needed in the company, what is needed in the organization, and what I could do personally to help make those things come into fruition. So today we will be celebrating, we will be diving into it, and we have many ways that this is happening. So if you haven't noticed already, hopefully you have, there are interpretations in Spanish and Japanese happening. So thank you to our interpreters. And for those of you who are looking for that interpretation, you can click at the bottom of your Zoom screen if you're in Zoom, and you should be able to click in. We are also into your language. We are also working with multiple Zoom rooms. So the amount of people that you see in your room is likely doubled in the other room. And we will, in the session later, be able to talk across those rooms. And I'll just briefly share the journey that we're on together, just in case it is the first time that you're here with us. This is part of a larger experience. So you may have done ULab before, or you now may be curious about ULab, but understanding Theory U is really deeply held in ULab, and being able to go through that journey together in the September to December timeframe. And right now, there's a ULab 2X experience happening where those who have gone through ULab are now, many of them are in their prototyping phase. So we can share more about that at another point, but just to share what we're doing here in the Gaia Journey as another arm of that annual cycle is really being able to understand system and self, and really see and understand the connection between those two. And this year, we're diving into a few acupuncture points. So we're using these first 2 months, we shared Katrin Kuffer's work on just money. We are now looking at social presencing theater from systems thinking to systems sensing. We'll be moving next month in soil and food from industrial to regenerative agriculture, in democracy and governments from dependence to direct dialogic. Technology will, towards the spring, looking at surveillance to co-creativity. At the bottom here, we will really look at healing our collective trauma, and beginning to crystallize our intentions together through a global forum, which will be a kind of different way of sensing into what's happening in our world together. And we invite you into that in mid-June. We'll be looking at economic transformation, pathways to well-being. We'll be looking at well-being cities and the SDGs within our planetary boundaries. We'll look at learning and education and democratizing transformation literacy, and business and leadership through mission-driven enterprises. So this is just a frame. So we are just at the beginning of the journey and just building into it. But today we are celebrating, as I said, SPT and Arawana Hayashi and her book. So we have with us Arawana here today. And also you'll see Manish Srivastava and Laura Pastorini, who are part of the SPT group and also a part of our global community and carriers holders of this work as well. So we look forward to hearing and practicing all together. For now, I will pass it over to Otto Scharmer, the co-host and founder of the Presencing Institute.
Thank you, Antoinette, and hello to everyone here from the Boston area. It's a beautiful day and such a celebration that brings us together here. It's a very special day for me. Arawana Hayashi doesn't really need in our community here any introduction, but as most of you know, she works as an educator, innovator, and performer. She is co-founder of the Presencing Institute and the creator of a new social art form called social presencing theater. And as of yesterday, she is the author of this amazing book with the same title, Social Presencing Theater, The Art of Making a True Move. I would like to begin and open this session, or continue to open this session with reading two quotes. We have art in order to not die from the truth. Friedrich Nietzsche. It's a poor translation of the German original more says, we have art in order not vanish and die in our true existence from the truth, kind of from a reality that only knows objects, but no interiority. So that's the first quote. We have art in order not to die from the truth. The second one comes from the 20th century avant-garde artist, Joseph Beuys. The only revolutionary force in human is human creativity. The only revolutionary force is art. The only revolutionary force is human creativity. The only revolutionary force is art. So when we look through the lens of these two quotes from the 19th century Nietzsche, 20th century Beuys, onto our current moment, 21st century, what do we see? We see that the main problem today is the knowing-doing gap. We live in a moment of profound transformation. We know everything about what we should be doing different, but we are not doing it. So there is a disconnect between the head and the hand on the level of the collective. And from a systems perspective, the only way of bridging that disconnect is by activating the intelligence of the heart, which means activating the revolutionary force of human creativity and art. So that was the background some 17 years ago when I first met Arawana. I sort of could sense it and I could think it, but I couldn't do it. And it was such a profound experience, Arawana, to meet you 17 years ago for the first time. Because in the moment we met, I felt she's the one who can do it. And it was, so formally, you and I and Catherine and Dana and Beth and others, 2 years later, we co-founded the Presencing Institute. But it was really in that moment where an important ingredient came together in this encounter, because for me, as I said, I could think it, I could sense it, but I couldn't do it. And that changed the moment in the moment of our encounter, in the moment I met you. So looking back now, 17 years on this, what you have been pioneering with social presencing theater, what is the main impact? I would say two things that I at least can see. There's probably a lot more, but one area of impact we are beginning to see is to advance the state of the art of systems thinking from systems thinking only as a disembodied activity to an embodied way of systems thinking that is advancing the traditional tools of systems thinking through a new discipline that I would call systems sensing. Systems sensing is embodied systems thinking. So that's kind of one area of impact. And the other area of impact, I would say, is that social presencing theater has given us powerful methods and tools. So when I now speak as a user, so I do a lot, like many of you, work in organizations with communities, multi-stakeholder groups. And I use a lot of social presencing theater methods and tools. And why is that? Because it's a method that allows you to create a map of a complex situation in a way that is concrete, novel, allows us to make the invisible dynamics visible and create a little bit of an intuitive, transformative roadmap going forward. And many of you, including everyone in the 2X community, ULAB 2X community, of course, have made many experiences with that. So over the past 15 or 17 years, social presencing theater really morphed from something that mainly happened in your living room, Arawana, and then it moved to certain organizational interventions where we experimented with that, to now a global community of change makers that use these methods and tools in many communities, in many organizations, in many places. And we all feel that this current moment is not the end of that. It's just the very beginning. So with that, and with a deep bow, I hand it over to you, Arawana.
Thank you, Otto. It's so much gratefulness to you for seeing something that I certainly couldn't see, and for this community that's really been the canvas for creating something that could be helpful to people, which is really the main point. How do we bring more feeling quality, more sense of our human connectedness, our human care for one another? How does that quality come to the surface, our own human goodness and wisdom? So the Presencing Institute and the Presencing community have been the container for the practices. So we start always, and I'd like to do just a few moments here with everyone. We so appreciate everyone taking the time to join today. If we could just start by a little bit of sitting and groundedness, that would be perfect. That we, if you could just on your chair, feel that your feet are really planted on this Mother Earth body, and that your seat has a place, that your body has a place on the planet right now, wherever you are, and that we can feel grounded there, and that we can feel that we belong in this place. So please feel your feet and legs and seat, belly, connected to the good Mother Earth who is holding on to us. We have a strong sense of back. All of our ancestors, all of our teachers, all of those who have gone before us to make a good human society, they're all cheering us on, backing us up. The top of the head is connected to the sky, open, vast space. Anything is possible, without limit. And we feel our heart. So much appreciation and gratefulness for this day, for our own health, our own ability to be together. And so much sadness and sorrow that we all hold for the suffering on the planet, the suffering of the earth itself. So we rest for a moment in this fullness, feeling our own heart and the sense that that genuine good heart radiates out and communicates, connects with, is resonant with all of the beings on the planet. I'm going to call attention to the fact that this is a still body. It's a body shape. It's resting. We can let our attention rest on the feeling of the body. Body breathing, body sitting, body waiting. I'm going to ask you just for a moment to move, shift to some other sitting shape. So just move your body some way, doesn't matter how. Just make a little movement so that you end up in another shape and rest there. And then do it again. Please move, begin to move, anything. You could stretch if you want, whatever you'd like. And then, yeah. And in a shape, another shape. Great. So we're applying a little bit of mindfulness. This means resting our attention on the feeling of the body, either as a still shape or a movement. And that's all you need to do social presencing theater, is to attend to the body as a shape and attend to it as it moves. So a little bit later, we're going to try that out together. But right now, I would like to show a little video, and the sense of our work is how important right now on the planet, with all these shifts and fallings apart and kind of challenges and struggles, how important it is for our young people to have some kind of container and education to help them. So we'd like to show a short video of our work in education as a beginning, and then we'll invite Manish, our wonderful colleague, to pick up from there and tell a little of his story of social presencing theater and how he's been using that. So if we could have the video, that would be perfect.
The emotional stressors on kids are really high at my school, that I'm constantly thinking, like, when is what kid gonna blow in what classroom? We've seen everything at the school. Losing students, to students getting raped, to like abuse, home abuse, some gang issues. Last year, we had like 13 suicidal ideations. Like, I'm like, is it ever gonna be where we don't have to constantly focus on the trauma and how to handle it?
Well, in California, the majority of students are faced with peer pressure or expectations for their academic achievement, or they are in settings that aren't engaging them. Different conditions make it hard for all students to succeed.
All of these things that are a result of the systems not working. If we want kids to be ready to learn, then we need to address the things that are keeping kids from learning.
The kind of education system that we have adapted in our country is you are working in big systems. You do not have a mind of your own, just memorizing what is required. In essence, you kill the curiosity, which is the essence of education.
The school here in Norway is getting more and more global. It's a kind of competition to be the best. So there is a gap in what the politicians want and the teacher can do in the classroom. How do we work together to integrate different subjects? How do we work with technology? This is increasing, this aches in the body, even for younger pupils. And how do we make them unhealthy? The lifestyle, sitting too much, a lot of technology, sitting more.
The social presencing theater potential for teaching and learning has an awful lot of self-awareness for students and experiential outcomes that we don't currently have now. That really excites me.
In social presencing theater, we have a variety of different practices. Usually we start with something that's called the 20-minute dance, which is really a mindfulness of body practice. So you move from laying down on the floor to standing, and the idea is to keep the attention on the feeling of the body instead of the thoughts that may take you in one direction or another.
We were able to pretty much move however we wanted to move. I just listen to what my body tells me to do.
And then we have a variety of other exercises. So there's a stuck exercise, which can be done as individuals or as groups, of bringing to mind a situation where something in your life or in your work is not moving forward, then embodying what it feels like to be stuck in that situation, and then allowing the body to move into a new position or situation. And then reflecting back on that. So what did the movement from where I was to this new sort of emerging future, what happened? Where did the movement begin? How did that process actually evolve?
In the beginning, my mouth is being held shut. And it slowly begins to open, so I can speak.
I will never forget my first stuck gesture as long as I live, because it was such a good connection between the body and the mind.
I see that I am my biggest opponent, and I shouldn't be fighting myself all the time. I should actually embrace myself more.
The social presencing theater allows us to inquire into how we are manifesting as a group of people. It's not as complex as actually the system itself, but it's a kind of microcosm of something that we actually can look at and investigate.
I had really been challenged with this systems change work, and social presencing theater allowed me to better understand systems, and not only where things are free-flowing within a system, but also where they're stuck.
As we integrate more of the learning that comes from the body, which is usually intangible or tacit knowing, students can access emotions, sensations, and integrate their learning in meaningful ways.
It can be a different kind of knowledge. When you move, it's fresh and new. You don't know what you're going to do, the next step.
When I saw the work with the students in Los Angeles, it was really interesting to be with them at the beginning of the day and to sense how nervous they were.
But I was really surprised that a majority of the kids, almost all of the kids, really took it on and were actually committed to doing the different moves.
And then how quickly it became something that they really wanted to do, and they wanted to be able to engage in that way and express themselves in that way.
I didn't think I would like this, but after actually going through this process, this is something that is very beneficial, because it's like, hey, let's take a break and let's reconnect with ourselves.
If I work with a class with movement exercises, it's very clear to me that they are much more together as a group, much more relaxed, and that they are very safe in the group.
Bringing in programs like social presencing theater, I think it's another tool that we can use to create a space for kids to be safe and to work through some of the issues that they're facing that make it hard for them to learn. If we don't address that, then it's going to be hard to get to 100% graduation rate.
Bringing this kind of mindfulness and art into the school system is critical now. It's critical. I mean, missing that would be missing the next step of evolution.
Thank you, Arawana. Seeing this video again after a while, I got in touch with the pandemic, actually, and how important it is to access embodied learning in times like this, especially when we are overwhelmed with fear and fragmentation all around us. It's very important to get to the source, to our embodied wisdom, to return to the body in a way and see what it wants to say, what is the body longing for. And so I would like to share with you all at this moment a story of my experience through the pandemic and how social presencing theater and embodied learning of this kind has helped me and people around me to engage with it. In a way, it helped us to turn our angst and struggles into action confidence. And that's what I would share in the next few minutes. And then Arawana would guide us into embodied practice so we can connect with how we experience the pandemic and what is it wanting to tell us through our experience. Surely pandemic landed differently on different people, but it also made visible some of the societal divides that we have been living in for a long time. Divides that Otto kept talking about for a very long, and many others were talking and experiencing. And pandemic made it visible at a collective level, but also very personally. And one such divide was in India. On 24th of March, 2020, it's almost a year, when India announced its lockdown, within a week, 139 million migrant workers suddenly had no job, no money, no shelter. They had nowhere to go. And 23 million of them had no option but to walk on foot thousands of kilometers back to their villages. When their images came through social media and other sources to those people like me who are living in good apartments in cities, it broke our heart. In fact, we were in a shock because these are the people who live around us. They build our cities. They are the gardeners, drivers, cooks who take care of us. And suddenly, they had no place to go. And it became visible that they make 1/3 of the population of the cities. So when their collective trauma became visible to us in this stark way, what I noticed that there were only two reactions, two broad reactions of rest of us. On one end, there was numbness and almost apathetic inaction by government, business, affluent class. It was as if we don't look at this problem long enough, it will disappear. And yet there was a bit of shame or guilt in that numbness too. And on the other end, there was rapid activism by citizens like me. We quickly formed a citizen collective. We started Twitter Storm, got into advocacy and relief work. But we also had anger and blame towards the policymaker and business. And at that moment, every single conversation was broken into two: activism or inaction, blame or shame, anger or guilt. We were doing a lot of work, yet I personally and people around me, change makers around me, felt really stuck between these two extreme emotions. And as they say in India, when the student is ready, the teacher would come. So around that time, Otto invited Thomas Hubel, and both of them engaged in a dialogue on collective trauma. And as I was listening to them, I realized that any collective trauma event like this pandemic, our default reaction is either hyperactivism or numbness, either fighting it out or fleeing or freezing in it. And I realized that both these are valid responses to deal with the intensity of the trauma, yet they lead to absencing, which means that we become kind of absent to the felt reality of our own self and the other. And that was an ouch moment, because I realized that I was not practicing what I was preaching. I realized that it's really hard to practice presencing when you are in the middle of fire, and that's the real test. It's not just about great places or places of nature, but in the middle of the fire to practice presencing, which is to step in the reality, to feel it fully, and then act from a space of curiosity and compassion. But I was lucky. Fortunately, I had an opportunity with my social presencing theater colleagues, Arawana, Angela, Olaf, who is doing the art right now. They came together and we embodied each stakeholder, we embodied ourselves. And for that, we had to first step out of the story of oppressed and oppressor. We had to step out of the story and step into the felt reality, felt experience of our own body. And tune into what is the body saying, just like we saw in the video. What is the body saying? What is it longing for? And that kind of made visible the inner longing and agency within each of the stakeholders. That was kind of an opening, and if I may say, a revelation. And as I was just listening to Otto right now, I quickly looked into my notes because there was one I journaled. It's kind of a poem, and I thought maybe I will read it. to just help us connect, because this was our felt experience when we moved from the story to the embodied experience of the social divide. When I stood out, I could only blame the oppressor, pity the oppressed, and shame everyone else in the game. Toggling between blame and shame, I had no space left for anything to transcend our collective stuck script. Then I stepped in, and they pierced open my heart as if they were my long lost parts. Now I feel each soul within, the overwhelming burden of the sovereign, grounded strength and agency of the grassroots, and helpless longing of those of us in the middle. Just then, I saw the artist who moved freely across the slots and gently unlocked us all, walking barefoot beside the children on the same long road. So this experience shifted the way we were looking at each other and looking at ourselves. In some ways, it transformed our angst into a kind of compassionate action with each other. And there were results, of course, but I am not going to talk about that now. We will talk about that a little later. First, I want to invite you into an experience with us, so that it's not just the story, but you can also feel the process, because we all went through the pandemic. So maybe take a moment to flash back on your year that has gone by. Pandemic has surfaced different struggles for different people. Maybe for you, it was parenting, relationships, job, health, elder care. Maybe a struggle to find your creative expression, or maybe it was some social ecological crisis that impacted you personally. So just take a moment to connect with, in your journey through the year, what did you experience? What part of your struggle is still alive? Something that you want to tune in now and access deeper embodied wisdom. Something that you want to take a moment to feel fully in your body through this practice. Something that has been quietly inviting you to step in. Stay with that, and I now invite Arawana to guide us through a short practice on embodying our current reality and letting the wisdom of the body guide us. And then I will come back to the rest of the story. To you, Arawana.
Thank you so much, Manish, for sharing with us and for your poem and just such an artful expression that you have been making and that we are all invited into now. So we saw in the video the stuck, and Manish has framed that there could be some feeling that we hold around our collective experience of the pandemic and of the various losses and struggles and anxieties that this brings. And so the stuck is never a problem in a way. It is the basis for creativity. That stuck is not us. It's an experience, temporary experience of some forces, both external forces or what we might call inner forces, that hold us from moving forward, that all of us are creative, all of us are innovative. Socially and individually, we all create the society that we live in. We create that together. And there are obstacles. There are obstacles to our full, genuine engagement. So we want here to embody that position, because, first of all, stuck is not sustainable. Everything in nature moves, everything. The body has a yearning, a longing for health, not only our body, but the collective body, our families, teams, organizations. It has a longing for wholeness and health. So we're investigating our own system, body-mind system, to begin with, and we'd like to do it in this way. So I want to invite Manish and Laura to be also in the spotlight so we can show you how it will go. It's very simple. You can, we prefer to do it standing, which is a little bit better because we can get our whole bodies in. And I'm going to say, I will start with my stuck gesture. So when I think about this last year, this is the gesture that arises for me. And I'm just going to take a moment and invite you in a moment to do the same. Actually, why don't you, if you want to, stand. We can all do this together, this part, okay? Stand up if you'd like. What would be your gesture? If I think into this year, what is the gesture? Okay. You can do it with your eyes closed if you want, or just turn away from the screen if you want, it's just fine. So stay with this, stay with this gesture so that you really feel, what does it feel like? We're sensing into it, sensing into the body. How do the feet feel? Where are the legs? Where is the low back? What about the shoulders? What about the hands, the jaw? What does it feel like right now? Now, we're going to let go of any thought we have of what this should turn into, what it might turn into, what you'd like it to be. We're going to let all of those thoughts go. Stay with the body. Stay with the body and let the body really listen in. Now, if you have a word or a phrase, let that come up. You're not thinking about it. What does this shape feel like saying right now? A word or a phrase? My phrase is under a covering. Now, letting go of, again, thoughts. I'm going to let my shape move. So I'm moving now. You can either watch or just move by yourself. Either way is fine. I'm moving. What is it? Hands doing. Now the back. Now I feel the shoulders dropping down. Now I feel the gaze shifting a little. I'm tracking my movement until I move into a second shape. And once I get there, I just rest and I wait. Word or phrase wants to come forth from this shape. What does this shape want to say? Holding many precious feelings. Then I'm going to rest, and I'm going to ask the two others, my two dear friends here, to reflect back. What did you notice about the shift from the first shape to the second one? What came up for you? What did you see or what did you feel?
From a closing pressure to an opening possibility.
Thank you.
From holding it close to a celebratory offering.
Thank you so much. So then in your breakout, then for instance, the second person, like Laura would show her, sculpture 1 is what we call the first shape, where we are in our current situation, to what the body would like to move into, which is what we call sculpture 2. So then she would do hers, Manish and I would reflect back, and then likewise the third person. So it just takes a few moments to show sculpture 1, sculpture 2, and then reflect back. Each of them reflect back. What did you see? What did you feel? And then there can be a little pause if you need to write a few things down in your journal, you'll have time. And then the next person, and then the third. Thank you so much for helping with this and helping invite everyone into trying this out. I think that we can go into, if that's okay, we can go into breakout rooms. I think we have a little instruction slide somewhere, if you don't remember, but so there it is. We'll see you back in, I think it's around 12 minutes or something like that, 10 or 12 minutes.
welcome those of you coming in from the weight room. We'll be starting in just a moment.
Welcome back for everyone. I hope you were able to have a little opportunity to practice. I know for many of you, this was probably the first time you'd jumped in and tried to access this kind of body wisdom and body knowing. And I really appreciate that it takes a little courage and it can be a little awkward, but we love awkward in this work. We celebrate awkward because awkward is opening, right? It's not knowing what's going to happen or what exactly I'm supposed to do. And that little gap of what we call awkward is one of the key elements of creativity. That if you already knew what you were going to do, it wouldn't be creativity, it wouldn't be art making. But we don't know, and we really celebrate the not knowing, and we really appreciate awkwardness. So if that was your experience, we are really grateful. We're grateful for that. And there's no pressure to try to be an expert in this. We always approaching with the beginner's mind and with that curiosity and care that Manish mentioned. So we would like you to just reflect for a moment, Pat, what is the message? If my journey from sculpture 1 to sculpture 2, which is a little you process, sensing in, letting go, letting come, a new gesture. If my journey from sculpture 1, the beginning, to sculpture 2 could give me a message or an insight into my emerging future, into what might be possible moving forward, what would that be? What is the little journey from sculpture 1 to sculpture 2? What is it saying to you? What is this body knowing actually saying? You're welcome to put that in the chat. Maybe Manish also can read off a few of these. Just be. Follow the courage to open up. Let go, open up, trust.
Embrace who and what made me.
Open to lovingness and possibility.
Unwind and believe in the future.
A release of energy. Yeah.
The earth can sustain me.
Everything is all right.
Dance with your dance.
Loosen the grip of expectation.
Surrender.
Have confidence in your walk in the world.
Be brave to take the opportunity.
Gentle opening.
Continue helping others.
My body knows where it can find less opposition.
Let self to lead self.
Dare to be open.
A new form of surrender, collapsing into tenderness of love.
Have faith in what cannot be seen, but what is manifesting.
don't try to do it alone. There are people around you to work together.
The planet moves, the plant moves from a hard shell to a green shoot looking for the sun. These are so beautiful. Manish, can I invite you to complete your story for us?
Yes, sure. Thank you so much, everyone. As I was reading your beautiful lines here, your messages, it felt like reading a group or a collective poetry. And these micro shifts that you experienced within yourself have potential to co-create a macro movement. And I would like to bring a little bit from my experience, which I was sharing with you, the second part of the story. So as we started embodying our experience, our frustration, and we invited other change makers, even policy makers, we invited them to our sessions, and where we just did this. We, instead of talking about, we embodied our experience and experience of others, and then letting it guide us what it wants to say. And that kind of shifted our conversation from blame and shame to curiosity. We became curious of each other's perspective. And as I shared in the little poem, we became aware of the tremendous resilience and strength of a migrant worker. We became aware of the vulnerability of a policymaker. And that led to some interesting initiatives. And three of them I just want to quickly name. Because of a perspective change and we saw agency in each other, we could now partner with grassroots women entrepreneurs to co-create local rural economy with migrant workers who were returning from the cities. That is one initiative which is beautifully being launched now. The other was to partner with business and government to create a job portal for blue-collar workers that brings them dignity and well-being. And then a community radio was launched by city dwellers to make the story of 139 million people visible. Now, these are great stories, but what really is important for me is the way the subtle shift took place in heart of those of us in India who were involved in this initiative. We started valuing these migrant workers as we want to be valued by our employer, serving them as partners and entrepreneurs. Some of us have gone ahead to cover for family insurance and future needs of the families of their drivers and gardeners. And some of them have even started social enterprise for their cooks from their kitchen. Now, these may be small things, but to know the background of racism, of caste system and colonization in India, these are very important shifts. And it's a bit like little shoots coming up after a night of storm. But as I was thinking today, when I did my stuff today, I just want to say this one last thing. I felt that honestly, the divides that pandemic has surfaced, both for you and for me, are huge and intergenerational. And we don't know if we will be really able to shift that in our lifetime. But what this practice has given me, a humility and courage to walk and stay at the edge of this divide, to neither disappear nor get consumed, but to stay at the edge and not give up. And maybe someday it will change. Thank you.
Thank you so very, very much, Manish. It's such a blessing for me personally that we can work together, and that your work, both on the corporate level and in the grassroots level, and your care for this world is so much part of one of the main ingredients of our work. So I am so grateful to all the teams that work in social presencing theater, all of our teams, and how the heart of the work is seeing the wisdom that's already there in every single person and in everything single social body, seeing its basic goodness and being able to articulate that through this particular art form of social presencing theater, and as well the poetry and the visual art that that Olaf is doing here. So I think, Antoinette, we were going to leave a little time here if people had questions or wanted to share their experience, I guess mostly. If you had anything you would like to say about your experience in the breakout or anything else, I think we have a few minutes, and I'll leave this to Antoinette to help us with.
Thank you, Arawana, and thank you, Manish, also for bringing us through this process, and Laura as well. So if there's anyone who does want to share across the Zoom space, any of your insights from the breakout room or from social presencing theater, you can use the reaction button at the bottom of your Zoom screen if you're in on Zoom, and click on raise hand, and we will be able to bring your voice and video across the global community. Rita.
Yes, Antoinette, thanks. What really touched me in the breakout room was how the two people that were with me had a similar issue, and how their two stuck enlightened each other. That was really beautiful, and it just gave me this sense of how the word unfold in the way that it needs to unfold, and also how that issue that they were sharing was something that made them see my own stuck as something even more unsustainable than how I was experiencing it. That there was something, yeah, this sense of the perfection of coming together of these three people was really beautiful. So thank you, Laura and Antoinette, and all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. I'll pass it to Awana.
Hi. What really touched me was something that Arawana says, that the body is visible, and how the visible body can create a social field by the movement. And that's what I felt in our group. Even if we are at distance, the fact that we see the movements of the other person, we feel them and we sense them, and we create a social field. Yeah, that was what really touched me. Thank you.
Thank you, Awana. We'll pass it to Walter.
It's the first time I am in this session, and
Well,
we have an overlap. Anyway, my name is Grace. I'm here in the Philippines, and I'd like to just thank you for the experience. I think it brought to consciousness how important it is to actually be acknowledged. that people are actually watching you and then they're reflecting what you've actually been doing. So that was a very beautiful experience. My question is, have you had experiences when you've been doing this of people who have actually had a heightening of their traumatic experience or the depth of the experience, and how was this actually dealt with?
Thank you for the question. I have great faith in small groups, and almost all of this done is in small groups. It's social presencing, and the sanity of the group can oftentimes hold and heal. So I really have our experience has been that the small groups can hold the suffering and the transformation and the healing for people. Just ordinary, without skills, but ordinary care that people give. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. May I ask further, because this is a very short experience that we've had tonight. I mean, it's evening now for us, but usually how long does a session like this have, over how long a period? And usually when you say a small group, how many people is that?
So maybe this is a little technical for most people. It depends. A group can be as small as 3 or can be as large as 20 or more. Of course, we can do it with many people, and I think it depends on your context and the practice that we're doing, and the sort of safety of the group. The main thing is that you always speak about your own experience, and you never, ever, ever project what you think another person is experiencing. So this sense of I voice, I feel, I saw is about ourselves, and that kind of sharing, that creates a safety and a kind of a loving attention in the container, and that's the most important thing.
Thank you very much. Wonderful.
Thank you for the question, and Arawana for your responses. We'll take Priya next.
Thank you so much for this wonderful space and work. And what I felt was so profound in our small group is that all the things I could see as the others in my group were moving from 1 to 2 were parts of my own journey. So it was like I could see parts of myself being reflected out to me. And just as I received their reflections on what was happening as I was shifting from 1 to 2, it's like also the same things that I could see in the shifts for them were energizing my space. So I could receive the things I felt like there was a quality of playfulness in what they were sharing that then I received, which was just, it was just extraordinary, actually. It was so powerful. So thank you so much. And to all the group that in the room.
Okay, and Antoinette,
This is
may I speak also? Can I speak also? Okay.
I believe we're going to Jose there we go. Jose in channel 2. There we are.
Hey. Hi, Arawana, Manish, and everyone.
Hello.
I have a question about what we experience is about the gap between sculpture 1 and sculpture 2. I think I'm always thinking about that and feeling that space, that vacuum. And I don't know, Arawana, if you can tell us more about this. It's like it's 1, 2, 3 seconds in time, but it seems like unlimited, like very, very space, very wide, like without limit. Yeah. And so I don't know if you can tell us more about this. Yeah.
I'm not certain that I can say anything about this. I know what you're talking about. And I think the invitation is that whatever you experience, that's, that's experience, and that's to be honored, whatever the experience, as you journey from one to two. And this continuously letting go of thought, letting go of thought. What does the body feel like? What is it that the body is yearning for? And that sense of, as you say, there's a suspension of our thinking and our kind of opinions and assumptions and judgments, and it has that kind of opening feeling. Appreciate that so much.
Thank you, Arawana, and thank you all for the questions. I know that we could stay here for a lot longer, just continuing the conversation. But Olaf has been working on a visual practice, and I'd like to turn it over to Olaf before we close out today. So Olaf, over to you.
Thank you, Antoinette. One little thing that I just realized right in the end as I was drawing down there, Otto was quoting about the art as the revolutionary force. And on the image, revolutionary force ended up right above human care. And somehow I thought suddenly, yeah, this is also a very nice coincidence because as Arawana points out, the one main ingredient for that is human care. And I think it's also for art in general. And also that human care is revolutionary struck me. So that's all.
Thank you, Olaf. And what we'd like to do is a final practice together of visual resonance. So if you are in Zoom and you can click to, there's a little button that says view if you haven't found it already, and you can click to full screen. And when you make it full screen, we can just be with this image for a few moments and notice what we're seeing, what we're sensing, and what we feel together as we stay with the image that Olaf has been describing during our session. And now, if you take some of that resonance into the chat, you can type directly in using the prompts I see, I sense, or I feel. And we will share some of those out. So I see, I sense, I feel.
I see anger and numbness giving way to action. I feel the heart awakening. I see pulsing universe. I sense light. I feel movement and possibilities in the center. I see sharp lines moving into flowing bodies.
I sense the trust we must have in chaos these times. I see light emerging in the midst of pain and confusion. I see something emerging from the fire and ashes, I sense the sweetness of the heat. I see people rising. I see a new force emerging. I see confusion. I sense a way out somewhere. I feel that with a subtle shift, I can change reality. I see the need for human care. Beautiful. Occupy our humanity. How do we occupy our humanity?
Thank you all for taking this time together to share in the resonance of what is emerging among us in this global field and global movement together. We will continue in just an hour and a half with more stories, celebration, and practice with Arawana and more of her team and global community members. If you would like to, the book is now out and we are in the process of distributing it and finding ways to get it outside of the US as well. So you can see the link in the chat, we will share it. And you can go directly to find it at the link that's shared. You can stay in touch with each other in the GAIA Journey site, so GAIAjourney.org. And we have a circle in Sutra where you can continue the discussion and conversation. So you can continue today's conversation on the GAIA community in Sutra. The link will also be in the chat. If you are interested in diving deeper into social presencing theater, there will be a U Academy course March 19th to 21st. So there's a link there. And if you are looking for the practice in other languages, we are offering through our language tracks these sessions throughout this month. And I would read all of the dates, but I don't know that we'll be able to track all the dates, but Portuguese, German, Spanish, French, Russian, and Japanese will be happening all throughout the next few weeks to dive deeper into this practice in our regions and languages that are comfortable for us. So there are many ways to stay involved and stay connected. We'll see more of us in the next hour and a half and continue. Thank you, Laura, for posting. We'll continue with GaiaJourney.org and stay in touch on social media with hashtag Gaia Journey. Thank you all again for participating in today's sessions and for all the work that you have done over the years and continue to do and co-create together. We can all unmute and say goodbye in our own language. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Listen down.
Congratulations, Arawana.
Congratulations,
To read your book.
Gracias. Desde Colombia.
Colombia.
Thank you.
Obrigado.
Obrigado, Madrid.
Um abraço a todos.
Don't live.
Um abraço, obrigada.
Köszönöm szépen.